It's hard to believe we're already into the month of January of 2024. What do we see in the Omaha real estate market as we enter the new year? How has the reduction in interest rates affected the Omaha market? What are home prices doing as we enter into 2024? All of these questions and more are going to be answered in today's video, and we're going to get started right now. Let's take a look at interest rates. Now, according to Mortgage News Daily, interest rates for a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage is at 6.8%. Now, remember, back in October, interest rates were over 8%. When rates go down, it means homes become more affordable. For example, let's compare the monthly payment for a mortgage at an 8% interest rate versus a 6% interest rate. You start with a purchase price of $400,000. You're coming in with 20% down payment, or $80,000. The amount financed at 8% for 30 years, $320,000. Your monthly payment, and this is just principal and interest, would be $2,348.05. Now let's compare that to a 6% interest rate. Again, purchase price $400,000, 20% down. The amount financed at a 6% interest rate for 30 years, $320,000. Your monthly payment, again, just principal and interest, would be $1,918.56. That means you save almost $430 a month when rates go down in terms of monthly payment. Now, keep in mind, I use 20% in these examples. However, you don't need 20% down to buy a home. For example, if you're using FHA financing, you can buy with a down payment of as little as 3.5% down. If you're a veteran, you can take advantage of VA financing and have zero down payment along with no mortgage insurance. And if you're buying in a rural area that qualifies for USDA financing, you can buy with zero down payment. Now, if you're using conventional financing, you can get into a home with as little as 3% down payment. Now, you want to talk to a local lender. Now, if you're from out of town and you need a local lender, hit me up. My contact information is in the description below. One thing that many people may not be aware of is that you might get a lower interest rate with a lower down payment. And this seems to defy logic, because a person would normally think that, well, I'm going to get the best rate if I come in with a 20% down payment. But that's not necessarily always the case. That's why you want to talk to that local lender, because sometimes it may be better to come in with a 10% down payment and you actually get a lower interest rate. Again, that's something you want to have a discussion with your local lender. Now, what are interest rates going to do this year? Nobody knows, okay? It's an election year, so I'm sure there's going to be political pressure to make things look as good as possible. Now, many of the experts out there think that interest rates will drop. And the thing is, that sounds good, but truthfully, nobody knows. Now, interest rates tend to track and follow the 10-year Treasury yield, okay? Meaning if the yield on the 10-year Treasury goes up, so do mortgage interest rates. They move in tandem with each other. And the reason that's the case is because if someone can invest in a treasury and let's say, and get no risk whatsoever and get 5%, well, in order to entice an investor to buy in a mortgage-backed securities, they're going to have to offer a higher percentage to that investor. So that's where you're going to see a gap between, let's say, a 5% treasury yield and a 7% mortgage interest rate. Now, the question always comes up, should I wait for mortgage interest rates to drop? When rates drop, it means more buyers are going to come off the sidelines. Okay, last month in December, we kind of had a little bit of a perfect mix because there were a lot of builders out there with a lot of incentives and were offering a couple of discounts. Now that rates have dropped, I think you're going to see many of those incentives go away. And if you're planning to put your home on the market this spring, start planning now. Start making those little repairs and putting things away and putting things in storage now. And go ahead and do things like, have your furnace cleaned and serviced. Let's say you're living out of state and you have to sell your home before you relocate and buy a home in Nebraska. Start the process early. Too many people wait too long to put their home on the market in the other state. Okay, the best stress is a sold home. And here's the other thing too, the timing is hard and it's difficult. It's better to have your home sold and then go have to live with your parents or move in with friends or family or go rent an Airbnb. Timing wise, it's better to do that than to have your home still on the market. Things can happen in real estate. And if you are moving to the Omaha area, my name is David Matney with Nebraska Realty, and I'm a local realtor here in Omaha, Nebraska. Now, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. My contact information is in the description below. Shoot me an email, shoot me a text, or give me a call. And if I could ask a huge favor, and that is if you like this content, do me a favor and subscribe to the channel and go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. What did home prices do in the month of December? The median sale price in Douglas and Sarpy County for the month of December was $299,950. That's up 7.1% compared to 2022. Now, what do you think Omaha prices will do in the next year? Leave a note in the comment section whether you think prices are going to go up or whether they're going to take a little bit of a hit or if you think they're going to stay flat. What about the number of sales? Now, sales were down. In the month of December, we only had 689 closed transactions in Douglas and Sarpy County, and that's down 4.7% compared to 2022. But look back at 2021. Look how many transactions we had during the month of December. And here's the other thing to remember. Even though sales were down, there still is a market out there. In any market, people need a place to live. And when somebody gets married, gets divorced, passes away, has a baby, or changes jobs, it creates a real estate need. And the other thing to realize in terms of closed sales is that the market has a life cycle. Sales increase in the spring, they peak during the summer months, and then as the fall, they decrease, and in the wintertime, they bottom out. Bad news sells. There's always a market out there. People need a place to live. If rates go down, more people can buy homes. If rates go up, fewer people can buy homes. There's always going to be somebody out there that needs a place to live. What about inventory? Now, inventory is up 14.3% compared to December of 2022. More inventory, more choices for buyers. Now, people forget 3 years ago, buyers had record low interest rates. Okay, that's great. However, some buyers had to make 7 or 8 offers before they got a home under contract. Some buyers had to waive home inspections. Other buyers had to waive appraisals. And just remember, when a buyer waives an appraisal, that means the buyer agrees to pay more than what the home is actually worth. An appraisal is an opinion of value. The lender wants an appraisal done so in case they get the property back, the home is worth what they loaned money for. So when that buyer waived that appraisal, that means that buyer had to come in with additional cash because that lender is not going to loan on a property for more than what it's worth. What about the months of supply of homes on the market? Now, we currently have 1.8 months of inventory. Compare that to 3 years ago when we had less than a month. We had 0.6 months of inventory. That's just a little bit over 2 weeks of inventory in the market. Remember, 0 to 3 months of inventory is a seller's market, 4 to 6 months of inventory is a balanced market, and 6 months of inventory or more is a buyer's market. We're still in a seller's market. Let's look at the inventory over the past 10 years. Now, look at the pattern now versus the pattern during the pandemic. We're starting to mimic the pattern that was pre-pandemic, which was still a seller's market, but it wasn't as crazy as it was during the pandemic. What about the median percent of last list price? Homes are still selling at 100% of the last list price. Now, understand that if you overprice the property, and let's say you have a $300,000 home and you price it at $325,000. Well, the home doesn't sell at $325,000, so you lower the price to $300,000. Well, when it sells for full price at $300,000, that is the last list price. Here is the median days on market over the past 3 years. So last month, it was 7 days for the median days on market. Now compare that back to 2021 when it was 3 days on the market. But even that number back then, 3 days on the market, sometimes they sold it within hours, but it was 3 days before they got it under contract because they wanted to review all of those offers. So it is taking a little bit longer for a home to sell, but it's still selling relatively quickly because we're still in a seller's market. Let's look at the median price per square foot, okay? And look at how it's gone up over the past 3 years. But just for fun, let's look at the last 20 years and look at the price per square foot. Here's the median price per square foot over the last 20 years. And you can see back in 2007, we had $109 per square foot. Then you can see we had the great financial crisis and prices dipped a little bit. In 2012, it was $98 per price per square foot. But look what it's done in the past 10 years from 2013. And this is looking at a 12-month rolling average. Okay, now it's currently up to $209 a square foot. But keep this in mind in terms of square footage. And that is, not all square footage is created equal. Okay, if it's finished square footage in a basement, that's not going to be as much as above grade. And then it's also going to be price per square foot. Is it, a newer property, or is it something that's dated? So don't necessarily hang your hat on price per square foot. As a seller, one of the biggest mistakes you can make is to overprice the property. And this is a tough lesson for many sellers to have to learn. I know a seller who bought a home in October of 2022. It was a split entry, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage with about 1,700 finished square feet. And it was built in 1974, and they paid $230,000. Now, this person went overboard and made all of these improvements and spent over $200,000 remodeling this home. Okay. Now, it was beautiful when they were done, but guess what? They have $430,000 into this thing, and then they turned around and they tried to sell it a year later. So in September of 2023, they tried to sell it again. Guess what? They had $430,000 into it. It only sold for $312,000 because a buyer doesn't care what you paid or what you have into a property. They only are going to pay for what it is worth. If you are going to go overboard and do a whole bunch of upgrades, you better make sure that you have a long-term outlook and that you understand that just because you put money in doesn't mean you're going to get money back out. What about the unemployment rate? Now, nationwide, we're at a 3.5% unemployment rate. In Douglas County, we're at 2.3% versus 2.5% in 2022. And in Sarpy County, we are at 2.0% versus 2.2% in 2022. Now, when a job is added, it creates a buyer in the marketplace. The job market is closely tied to the real estate market. We track the unemployment rate because if unemployment rate increases, it kills off demand in the housing market. And what we're starting to see is that more and more people are moving to cities like Omaha because we have affordable housing market, we have a higher quality of life, we have a better place to raise a family, better schools, and more opportunity. Now, are we perfect? No. We have high property taxes and the weather is not the best. Finally, what about lumber? Lumber is currently at $544 for 1,000 board feet. Now, over the past year, lumber prices have remained relatively stable compared to 3 years ago. And if you want to learn more about the Omaha market, be sure to check out this next video, and you make it a great day.